Greetings and salutations! In this video, we're going to take a look at Debian 12 Bookworm. What I'm going to do is download it and install it in a virtual machine, and you guys are going to see every step of the process. I haven't done any research on this. I have read no release notes. The only thing I know is that the latest Debian was released on June the 6th, 2023. And a friend of mine sent me a note and said it's finally here because they were anxiously awaiting this version of Debian. I figured it'd be fun to just kind of do a hangout style video as it happens. We'll see how far we can get. We'll see if we can get this thing to run in a virtual machine, and if we do, we'll take a look around and see what it's all about. Sound like fun? Grab yourself a beverage because we're getting started right now. First thing we need to do is download the system. And let's go over here, make this a little bigger for everybody to see. And the first thing up here, it says this is Debian 12, codenamed Bookworm. This is the NetInst for 64-bit PC. And that seems to be the first choice. They have some other things here, other installers on the page. We're not going to worry about that. We'll take the first choice here, like most people would. And they also have checksums down here in case you want to make sure that the page is, or the file rather, is genuine. I trust Debian. Pretty sure it's all right, so we're going to go ahead and download that and see how long that's going to take. It says it's got about 2 minutes. That's cool. So let's go ahead and start setting up a virtual machine for this. Like I said, no prep whatsoever. Let's do a new machine. We're going to do Debian, and it's figured out that it's Linux, which is good, so let's do next. For the base memory, let's make it like a cheap laptop. We'll do 4096, and how about we give it 3 processor cores. And for the drive, we'll give it a 40 gigabyte drive. Remember back in the early 2000s when those 40 gigabyte drives showed up and we all thought they were huge? Good deal, man. You get 40 gigabytes and it's only like $200 or whatever it was at the time. It was a lot of money. I bought a PC in 2003. It was an E-machine running Windows XP, and it had a 40 gigabyte hard drive in it. And I remember thinking, man, that's a big drive. Alright, so that's the first round of setup there. That's the basics. We'll finish it. And then what we're going to do is go in here and we will do tweaking. Let us tweak. You can come tweak with me. Let's see, we have advanced. And here I want to choose sharing the clipboard bidirectional. This is very useful with virtual machines. By the way, the host here is Linux Mint 21.1, and it's a AMD system, Ryzen 5 3400G. Alright, this looks like we're just going to let this be the way it is, and we're not going to mess with anything. Go to display. I'm going to leave this alone for now. The highest that you can get by sliding this slider over is 128, but you can actually get more, and I'll show you how shortly. I do want to enable 3D acceleration. Let's go to storage, and our ISO file should be downloaded by now. So what I want to do is add that here. And we get to choose a disk file. Oh, I haven't put it in there yet. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Alright, let me go ahead and cancel that for now. And I need to come here. And I need to go to downloads. I have a pretty standard place that I put ISO images, so that's all I have to do there. Close that up. Alright, now we do that one more time. We want to, oh, it found it. So let's go ahead and say OK on that. Oh no, if I say OK, I'll leave. I don't want to leave. Alright, let's look at the host drive. We want to tell it that it is a solid state drive. Absolutely. And we want it to use the host drive. Okay. Alright, a couple more things I wanted to do. That's alright, it's a good idea to probably click OK every now and again and lock in the settings. We'll leave audio alone. For the network, we want to switch to a bridged adapter and not NAT. That means that the virtual machine will go out to the router and get its own IP address, which is what we want. And not worried about serial ports. USB is USB 3. I don't think we're going to be using it, but nice to set that up anyway. Not going to use any shared folders, and I don't quite know what to do with this other than to get rid of that bottom bar because I don't need it. But we'll have to see how Debian sets up their stuff and come back and reset that. This is so when the virtual machine is in full screen mode where the little toolbar appears. So if you have a toolbar that's already at the top, for instance, then you don't want this at the top of the screen and vice versa. So you can move it that way. Alright, our VM is pretty much set up. Let's do one more thing here. Let me grab this. And I want to do a search for VBox. And there it is down at the bottom. See, it says VBox terminal commands. So we're going to grab this command right here and copy that. Or actually, just all we need to do is highlight it. You don't have to do the whole paste and copy thing. Once I got it highlighted, I can just go and it puts it in the terminal. And our virtual machine is named Debian. Some folks on small devices may not be able to see what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing is entering a command that will change the video memory for our virtual machine to 256 megabytes. And it ran with no errors, so I'm assuming that that worked. We can go ahead and close this little cheat sheet up. Close that. We can go in here and look at settings. And we look at display. Look at that, 256 megabytes video RAM. We're ready to go. So let's start this thing up and see what we can do with it. Alright. Put this into scaled mode so we can make it big so everybody can see what's going on. If you're going to be doing screencasts and things like that on YouTube, then you really need to keep in mind that there are people watching on their phones and stuff like that, so they can't really see. Let's go ahead and do the graphic install before it makes that decision for us. That sounds like the logical way to go anyway. Alright. English. That's the language we speak around here. And we're going to do United States. We'll do American English. And this thing's going to go out and set some stuff up. It's been a long time since I installed Debian, but I remember this installer. They have not changed the look and feel of it that much. Probably been maybe 4 or 5 years since I installed Debian. I'd like to thank everybody who watched the last video I posted about whether or not you needed a home partition in Linux. I was really surprised. First of all, that thing's got about 16,000 views on it, and the other thing is that it got just a tremendous amount of comments. Everybody had something to say, and I was shamed into actually putting a home partition on my machine. I reloaded it after that because just so many people said, oh, you need a home partition. So I've got one now. Hope that makes you happy. But thank you to everybody who watched and commented on that video. So the first thing we're doing here, in case you can't see this, is we are choosing a host name for this system. I just put in Debian VM. Sounds good to me. Alright, the next thing we're going to have to put in a domain name. Now, this is when you know you're dealing with Mother Debian right here, because most Linux these days doesn't bother to ask for this. Like if you're installing Ubuntu or Linux Mint or some more consumer user-friendly distribution. I'm just going to put debianvm.com in. Next thing it's going to ask for is a root password. Now this is something that you'll also find in Debian that you won't find in Ubuntu or Linux Mint, because in Ubuntu and Linux Mint, the idea is that there is no root account because you never set a password. That account is locked. And you, as a user, if you want to use elevated privileges, will use the sudo command. I usually mispronounce that as sudo, and a lot of people do too, but it's switch user do or super user do. Either way it works. And that way, if there's no root account present, there's no way to sign in as root. It makes the system more secure. That's the thought. Well, Debian is very old school, so they ask you to set a root password. So I'm going to set a root password. We'll play along. And once you get this set up, if you don't want to do that, there is a way to just go back to like what Ubuntu and many other systems do these days, where you are using sudo to do elevated privileges. You simply just lock this account and make sure that you are on the sudoers list, which I have done in the past with Debian when I have played around with it on other systems. But this time around, we'll actually create a password. And by the way, my root password for this machine is I am root. Very secure, huh? Okay, so we're going to do a user account will be created for you to use instead of the root account for non-administrative activities. That's always a really good idea. So let's put my name in. Looks good. Make sure I spell it right. Joe is fine for the name of my user account, the short name. Alright, let's get a password in here. And I'm going to use a super secret, super safe password. And no, it is not password. Okay, let's see. I am in Eastern Time. So far, this is pretty straightforward. Starting up the partitioner, it says, we want to use the entire disk. We do not want to use LVM, nor do we want to encrypt it, and I'm not doing it manually. It is a 40 gigabyte virtual disk. Let's let Debian figure out what to do with it, shall we? Yes, that's it. Let's do it. It's going to do a separate home partition. Oh, so we get different schemes to choose from here. Well, I'm not going to do a bunch of... Let's do the all files in one partition. It's a tiny little drive, guys. If it creates a separate home partition, that's going to be kind of weird. But it's nice to know that you can do that. And it's going to create 1 gigabyte of swap space. I'm down with that. That looks good. Let's go forward. Let's see. Well, of course, write the changes to the disk. Thank you. That's just in case. I guess that's so it makes you look. But boy, that could catch you up if you weren't paying attention. All right. So we are installing the base system. And it is boogieing right along. I don't remember whether I told the system that this was a SSD or not. We'll see. I can go back and fix that. Don't think I did, nor do I may have. It's been a little while since I created a new virtual machine. It's okay, we'll just let it install this way and then we can go back and fix it. So let's see. No, I don't think we need to do that, do we? No. Let's go forward. Configure the package manager, United States. Let's see if we can find a... What it's looking for right now is a mirror, and let's see if we can find one close to me. I think the last time that I was fooling around with Linux Mint Debian, the fastest mirror to me was, there's Lehigh University, that's in Pennsylvania, that's about 1,000 miles away. Debian, or deb.debian.org was the fastest. I'll leave it there for now, deb.debian.org. Let's go ahead and go with that one. I think that was the fastest the last time that I was playing around with Linux Mint. Okay, there is no proxy. Let's go forward. Wondering if it needed to have proxy information to get out on the web here. It says select and install software, except it's not. I'm not selecting anything. Let's see. It says the system may anonymously supply the distribution developers with statistics about the most used packages on this system. This information influences decisions such as which packages should go in blah 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 blah. Sure, why not? That's anonymous information. I'm happy to give that to Debian. All right, let's see what we got here. We can choose our desktop here. All right, so the standard is GNOME. We can do KDE. We got a Cinnamon version. That's interesting. We can do Mate, LXDE, and LXQT. Well, the one that is checked is GNOME. So we're going to do that one. Standard System Utilities. Let's go ahead and put that on there. That's what I'm being offered. It's got to download 14,001 packages, and we are on 280 something. Yeah, that's going pretty quick though. Alright, this looks like it might take a little while, so this is one of those situations where I will pause, and when we get close to the end, I will restart the vid. Alright, it appears to be almost finished downloading the software. So let's see what the next thing it does after it actually gets all of these packages downloaded. Now we are going to install. So they use the same progress bar for the downloading as they do the installation. So this is what we're going to get until the system gets done installing itself, apparently. Alright, so we will pause and we will wait for this to happen. Kind of cut the time out for you guys. Alright, it is boogieing right along here, man. Boogie, boogie, boogie. We should be finished very shortly. And I'm assuming that when we get done with this, we will restart the system. See what we get. Debian in the past has not been noted for being the most user-friendly piece of software as far as new users are concerned with Linux, or operating system rather, I should say, not software. Okay, well, yes, please install the grub. Kind of be nice to have that. I guess that would be the device. But as you can see here, you have a lot of choice as you go through, and you know what you're looking at when you're installing the system. So if you are an experienced Linux user and you understand the questions that it's asking, you can really manipulate this installer to come up with a pretty slick install. And you can do that as well with like the Ubiquity installer, which is what Ubuntu and Linux Mint uses, and a couple of others, but this seems to be, this is it, you know, this is how it's doing it. There's no live environment on this particular kind of install. I'm sure that they have a live environment that you can download, but we went with this option. Okay. Installation complete. Please choose continue to reboot. That's exactly what I want to do. Let's reboot the system. Let's see if this works. Oh, there's our front page. Our grub splash there. And it's showing things loading. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay, welcome. Thank you. So now that we have that booted, before I go fooling around with it, I want to wow, this is pretty cool. What I want to do is power it down because I want to go check some settings real quick. Okay, I go to settings, I go to lock. Oh, I just locked it. Okay. The only GNOME desktop that I have used in quite some time is Ubuntu's. So I'll just go next. Go ahead and get this out of the way. We want English US. Yes, I've already asked these questions. Sure, leave them on. I don't care. No, we're not going to connect any of my online accounts. It says I'm all done. Isn't that nice? That's nice. Start using Debian. Now, actually, I don't want to start using Debian. I want to figure out how to... Here it is. The power button. Duh. Power off. Okay, I want to power this off. I just want to go check a setting real quick. And we'll go to Storage. Yes, I had clicked that, and I had done that. Okay, I wanted to make sure I did that. So we'll go ahead and restart this now, and then we're going to see if we can sort out some video drivers for VirtualBox. If you are used to using Linux Mint with its driver manager, or Ubuntu has where you can select drivers under the software and updates, I don't think you get that in Debian. I don't think there's anything like that. And the only way to do this is to do it from... It comes up have to select the desktop. That's kind of weird. Okay, so if I take this out of scaled mode, let's see what happens. Let's see, do I have, oh, that's what happens. Okay, so no, we have no drivers running at all. So back to scale mode. Let's open up a terminal and see if we can find the correct driver for this. Okay. Control, alternate, and T doesn't seem to bring up a terminal. I'm used to that. So I'll go find it in the menu. Okay. And make that a little bigger. Alright, let's see if we can install... see. Well, guess what? There does not seem to be any virtual box things in here at all. So we don't have that in the repositories. So we'll have to install the drivers another way. Yeah, there's nothing there. It's not in there. Okay. While we're here, though, I'm curious about something. Let's see what kernel we have. We are on 6.1. That's cool. Okay. Alright, so let's do this. Take it out of scaled mode. Go to devices. Insert the guest editions CD. Did it do it? Will it tell us? It doesn't pop up anywhere like I put a disk in. Well, go back to scaled mode so we can see what's going on, and then we'll open up a file manager. Open up files. There it is there. Did not automatically run auto run. Lovely, I gotta remember how to do this. I think it's VBox Linux Editions. Yeah, so what we need to do now is go get our terminal again. This is just about I think this is a very basic GNOME installation, and there's nothing else on this machine. Let's go ahead and make this larger. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, pushing the wrong button. Bigger, bigger. Okay, so let's do... okay, CD-ROM. Okay, that's where we need to be, so we need to run one of these things here. Now somebody out there who does this all the time is looking at me going, man, this is easy. I don't see why. I have not done this in a long time. Oh, you can install Solaris editions. Wow. Think about that for a minute. That is crazy. Solaris editions. Alright, let's see what we can do here. I guess we need to switch to root. I am root. Okay, I'm there. So now what I want to do is I want to run, let's see, VBox Linux. Then how it won't do that. see if this works. Permission denied. What, is that not set up to run? VBox Linux Editions run. I put that incorrect. Yes, you did. So apparently that doesn't run. It should run, but it doesn't. Let's try auto run sh. See what happens if I do that one. It's just Alright, so if I'm in here as root user, how can permission be denied? Let's see what I have here. Auto run is set to execute. So how can the permission be denied, especially if I'm running as root? That doesn't seem to make sense to me. I'm confused now. Let me see. Let me try that one more time. Did I mess something up? Nope. Okay, let's try and run it without root privileges and see what happens. The permission is yet again denied. Just out of curiosity, trying to get this to work. I'm not in the sudoers file, so I can't do that at all. So, I don't know why, but I cannot run this particular script anywhere. That is very interesting. There's exes for Windows. I'm stumped. I don't know how that works. Alright, so I guess we're just going to have to run this in scaled mode and see what we come up with. This is it. Alright, let's see what's here. We have Firefox ESR, which is like a long-term support version of Firefox. We have Evolution, which is a mail client that comes with GNOME these days. I am not a fan of Evolution. We got LibreOffice installed. It said LibreOffice Writer is here at least. Files, software. Maybe we can find what we need here. Could there be? Do we just use the software, and maybe if we did a search and looked for the drivers? Could it be here? Doubt it. All right, let's explore, search, and look for VirtualBox drivers. No application found. Okay, well, what do I think of Debian? So far, I'm not really that impressed because I'm having a difficult time trying to figure out why I can't run a file that I can run on every other system, and it usually mounts itself automatically and asks me if I want to run. So it's not doing that, because all you usually have to do with the guest editions is to mount the guest editions as I showed you, and then the auto run will kick in and a box will come up and say, would you like to run this? And you say yes. And then that will automatically go and install the video drivers for VirtualBox so that we can get out of this kind of funky scaled mode, and we could make the screen a lot bigger. Let's see if we can, maybe we can change the display itself. Let's see if we can do that. So let's go here. All right, these are all the installed. Yeah, maybe that would be over here and put it in, go to settings, go to display. Accessibility, there's displays. All right, we are now set at 800 by 600. Let's do 1440 by 19. Apply. Keep the changes. Take this out of scaled mode. All right, that's a little easier to deal with. Now the fonts have gotten very small, and it's very difficult for me to see. Let's go over here and turn on large text. That makes it somewhat better. But see, like if we should try to full screen this, that's what we get. And then that toolbar is down here. That's what you're trying to do if you're not familiar with VirtualBox. Once you get the video drivers done, you get auto scaling so that when you do a full screen that it fills the screen and it looks normal. But I'd probably have to go off and do some research and find somebody somewhere to tell me how to install these drivers, since they're not available in the repositories, nor will it work from the Guest Editions virtual disk. So far, this is pretty cool. So basically, what you're getting is an extremely basic GNOME setup with nothing extra on it at all. Now that's much better. Okay, because we were getting tiny little icons and big words, and it was hard to see what was in here. So we can see what's actually installed, and this kind of looks like standard GNOME stuff. Software and updates. That looks kind of like the Ubuntu software and updates, doesn't it? This is other software. We have, that's it. So we don't have any, just out of curiosity, if I go in here and type in driver, what do I get? Now it goes to software and updates, where we just were, but there's no mention here of drivers. That's interesting. Okay. So let's see what else we have in here. Now, with these drivers, we have just run into what I have heard referred to in the past as a Linux brick wall. That means we have come across a situation where it's not working properly and we have no indication of what's going on whatsoever. In other words, there's no mention anywhere in this system about drivers. If you're used to Ubuntu and you go here, which a lot of people would be if they were coming from Ubuntu to this, and you open up software, that's where you have the drivers that automatically pops up. It's not doing it here. And this is kind of a thing that happens with, especially with distributions of Linux that are just not geared toward new users. You have to kind of know what you're doing here. You have to know where you can get those drivers, and you're going to have to go off and research it, and you're probably going to have to install it from the terminal. Now, we knew this when we were getting into Debian, that this is the way it was, but I'm just kind of saying that this is why Linux gets the reputation of being an extremely difficult operating system to use. Not that Windows doesn't lead you to a couple of brick walls, because they do. I wonder, this music, I guess that's I think that's a really simplified music player. We don't have any music on this anyway. Let's see. Documentation. This is for GNOME. Not for Debian. What else do we have here? Let's see. Extensions for GNOME. System monitor. Let's see what that looks like. Just curious. That's another thing. It would take me. I'd have to go set that shortcut for Control, Alternate, and T to get a terminal open. Let's have to switch to root. Let's make that big so everybody can see it. This terminal running in here. Now I'm giving it the root password, and I am now as root running in Joe's account. So that's kind of weird, but we'll do it anyway. So what I want to do is I want to do apt install htop. Okay, that's done. Exit and run htop. So we can see how the system is running. So we have not opened a web browser, but we have opened a lot of applications, and we're using just over a gig of memory to run the desktop and this terminal. Now that's pretty normal for GNOME. People will go, "Oh, GNOME is such a memory hog." What it does is it loads as many components as it can in memory to make it a faster experience. If the memory should be demanded by an application, it'll start dumping it, which means that your desktop will run a little bit slower. But then the application, the game that you're playing, whatever, that'll get the memory. So a lot of people go, "Oh, it's such a memory hog." It's not really. It's using memory, but it'll give it up if necessary. Not quite sure what else to look at here, gang. There's not much to this. This is about as basic as it gets. And I guess you could just go into software, and let's see what we can find in software real quick before we wrap this up. I'm not quite sure what to look for here. Deja Dupe is a backup system. Drawing. I do want to look for one particular little tiny piece of software. It's always my test. This was out of the repositories in Debian and Ubuntu for quite some time. No application found. Let me see if I can look. Let's do a terminal one more time. And then it reappeared, and now let's see if it's here. Usually I don't need elevated privileges to search apt, so this would be apt search. Yes, it is in the repositories. It's not showing up in software. So let's install that just for fun. Nope, can't use sudo, can you? Yeah, I'd have to change this up. I couldn't get used to doing this way. I'm one of those who believes it's more secure not to have a root account enabled at all, though. I'm in that camp. I believe that it's better just to leave the root account locked and then use sudo to get everything done that you need to do. So anyway, what do I need to do here? Well, I need to su root I am root. Now I can do apt install p3 gain. Noticed it didn't ask me whether I wanted to install it or not. It just did it. So that is in here. Exit root, back to being me. That's it. Well, I think that's about as much as I feel like playing with this thing, to tell you the truth, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. My final thoughts on this are just kind of real simple here. This is an extremely basic system that basically doesn't do anything at all to hold your hand through anything. So I could understand why, if you were a very advanced Linux user, this might be appealing to you, because then you could tailor the system to do exactly what you needed it to do. But it also shows me exactly why Ubuntu exists, because the idea behind Ubuntu was to take Debian, which was a very good, stable system, and take Debian and make it user-friendly. I think they got about 90% of the way with Ubuntu. Ubuntu is, yes, more user-friendly and easier to get installed, and they've made some tweaks, like instead of having to log into a root account to be able to use sudo. Also, like I said, I think it's more secure to have that root account locked instead of having it activated. The other thing that Ubuntu has done is, during the install process, they have streamlined it, removed things like setting proxies and domain names and things like that, which are, for most Linux laptop and desktop users these days, it's not something you need to do. Linux Mint takes it another step. They took Ubuntu and basically made it an out-of-the-box system that works. The original idea behind Linux Mint was just to take Ubuntu and install all the codecs that you needed to do things. You see, way back in the early days of Ubuntu, when you installed it, you had no way to play an MP3 file. You couldn't watch a YouTube video. Back in those days, YouTube relied on Flash video. And so you would have to figure out how to open up Synaptic Package Manager and know what package to look for to install all of that. So Linux Mint was a reaction to Ubuntu, where they already went ahead and did that. So when you installed the system, you could play YouTube videos and you could listen to music and that sort of thing, because there were copyright and patent infringement things that made it where Ubuntu did not feel comfortable. Canonical, the company that distributes Ubuntu, Canonical did not feel comfortable distributing it with this activated, and left it up to the user, see, and that takes all the legality off of their heads and puts it on you. If you choose to use this patented or copyrighted product, then that's up to you. And Linux Mint just said, forget it. I'm just going to install everything. So these days, Linux Mint is still doing the same thing, and they have a slightly different philosophy than Ubuntu, but the systems are a lot closer than they used to be. So now you can see why that exists, is because the Debian people just put out a very basic system. Debian, by the way, is one of the oldest Linux systems. It dates back to 1993. The guy who started it was Ian Murdoch, and he was an undergraduate at Purdue University. And his girlfriend's name was Debian. No, her name was Debbie. Debbie, not Debian. Nobody's named Debian. And so he named the operating system Debian after his girlfriend Debbie. Makes sense. Well, I just, I guess MX Linux Mint based on Debian, they're a lot easier to use. I'm going to be anxious to see what Linux Mint Debian looks like when that comes along. I tried MX Linux a while back. I wasn't particularly impressed with that. It just seems that Debian does need, for a more casual, user-friendly experience, needs that extra little touch that other distributions put on it. So that seems to be the way it is. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. I certainly do appreciate it. Your comments are always welcome. Suggestions, whatever you'd like to send along, love to hear from you. And we will do another one soon. And final word, this is not for me. Wouldn't be using Debian, I don't think. Maybe on a server. But I wouldn't want to use it on a desktop because there's just they're not making it easy, that's for sure. All right, well, we will talk again soon. Thanks for watching.